California is the beating heart of America, and here's why. This powerhouse state is home to some of the world's biggest companies: Apple, Google, Facebook, and even OpenAI. These aren't just companies, they're trillion-dollar empires. Each one generates more value than the GDP of entire countries. Take Apple, for example. Its market cap alone is over $3 trillion. That's more than France's entire GDP, which sits at around $2.78 trillion. But let's get to the real question. What exactly turned this place into Silicon Valley, the global hub of startups and tech empires? To answer that, we go back to the early 1800s. California was a sparsely inhabited area under Mexican control, but in January 1848, when a man called James Marshall found gold at a mill near Cole, northeast of Sacramento, that is when things started to change. And then it was 1909. That's when Charles Herald founded the Herald College of Wireless and Engineering. He built a homemade radio station using an umbrella-style antenna on the school rooftop. With help from his assistant, Ray Newby, he began broadcasting weekly programs, a bold move for the time. Herald used the call letters FN and SJN, and today, historians credit him as one of Silicon Valley's original pioneers. Now we step into the 1920s and 1930s, a time of Zeppelins, radios, and prunes. Back then, this orchard-filled region was known as the Valley of Heart's Delight. But, like the rest of the US, California was hit hard by the Great Depression, and it faced an extra challenge. People were leaving. With job opportunities scarce, many packed up and headed to the East Coast in search of work. But then came Frederick Terman, a professor in Stanford's Department of Electrical Engineering. He was deeply concerned about this trend of people leaving, so he decided to take action. His goal? Create jobs right there in the local community. He began building radio communication networks as the US military started using California's coastal regions for strategic purposes. Thanks to the vast open land, they established Zeppelin bases and large testing facilities. As this expansion continued, the demand for technical expertise skyrocketed, but there weren't enough skilled workers to meet it. By the mid-1930s, Terman was working tirelessly to attract both companies and former students to the region. One of them was Stanford alum Bill Hewlett, who returned and began experimenting with oscillators and improving light bulbs. Terman struggled to find funding for him until he was connected with another Stanford graduate and Hewlett's close friend, Dave Packard. Terman's visit eventually paid off. In 1959, Varian Associates became the first company to sign a lease in the area. They produced vacuum tubes, which were in high demand at the time. Gradually, companies began moving in. California was also rich in oil. By the 1920s, Southern California had become one of the world's top oil producers. Wells were drilled near schools and beaches, and entire cities grew around them. The oil revenue funded roads, buildings, and vital infrastructure. But eventually, there was too much oil. Supply outpaced demand, and prices crashed. In 1900, a barrel cost $1.19. By 1905, it dropped to just 65 cents. By the 1930s, California's ports were already moving massive amounts of goods in and out of the state. Their strategic size and location made them vital for wartime logistics. When the US entered World War II, California's ports became crucial hubs for transporting troops, weapons, and supplies across the Pacific. After Pearl Harbor, America ramped up its military production, and California became the center of it all. Its ports, oil reserves, manufacturing, and workforce played a critical role in the war effort. In fact, California was responsible for 17% of total US war output. 10% of America's defense budget went straight to the state. Los Angeles became the aircraft capital. Lockheed built bombers in Burbank. Douglas Aircraft expanded operations in Santa Monica and Long Beach. Hangars and factories filled cities like Leawood and Palmdale. San Diego built ships, and the Bay Area, especially Oakland and Richmond, became key naval logistics centers. After World War II ended in 1945, the Cold War kept the money flowing. Instead of shrinking, California's economy expanded. By the 1950s, military contracts had become a major part of the state's economy, especially in aerospace. In the decades that followed, Southern California alone accounted for between 20 and 30% of all aerospace jobs in the country, and by 1971, California had overtaken New York to become the largest state economy in America, with a GDP of $120 billion. In the 1940s, the computer age began with the invention of the transistor. It was developed in 1947 by William Shockley, John Bardeen, and Walter Brattain while working at Bell Labs. In 1956, Shockley founded his own firm, Shockley Semiconductor, and began developing silicon transistors, giving rise to the term Silicon Valley. But in 1957, 8 of his employees left to start Fairchild Semiconductor. Shockley was furious and called them the Traitorous Eight, but undeterred, those same engineers went on to build some of the most important tech companies in history, including Intel, AMD, and Kleiner Perkins. Kleiner Perkins would become one of Silicon Valley's most influential venture capital firms, helping to launch tech giants like Amazon, Twitter, and EA. The final piece of the puzzle was venture financing. Before the 1970s, raising capital was difficult. Most banks avoided risky ventures, but venture capitalists didn't. Many of them set up shop on Sand Hill Road, just next to Stanford. They began backing new companies, many founded by Stanford students and professors. Among the most prominent were Kleiner Perkins and Sequoia Capital. These firms invested early in future giants like Apple, Cisco, and Oracle. Their funding allowed tiny startups to grow rapidly and transform the industry. Apple was the turning point. Founded by Steve Jobs and Steve Wozniak in 1976, the company went public in 1980. The IPO created instant billionaires and unleashed a wave of new startups. By the 1980s, the region had earned its name, Silicon Valley, but it wasn't just about semiconductors anymore. Now, it was about computers, software, and networks. Stanford kept the momentum going. Its professors worked with private companies, its graduates launched their own startups, and the university's close ties with the military stayed strong. So, why do companies keep setting up shop in Silicon Valley? One reason is simple. This is where the money is. The acquisitions, the early exits, capital is everywhere, and that draws in more startups. But that's only part of it. The second reason is deeper. Many of these companies, like those born from Fairchild, never really left. They stayed because they were part of a tight-knit community, one built from university ties and long-standing networks. Staying close just made sense. These professional circles laid the groundwork for another key element in Silicon Valley's success: collaboration. Founders joined forces, shared resources, and built new products with their own tech. That's how the PayPal mafia was born, actually. And it's a perfect example of what makes this place so unique. A third reason is diversity. California's top universities attract highly ambitious students from all over the world. These students don't just bring talent, they bring different perspectives. That diversity has turned Silicon Valley into a melting pot of ideas. So when companies invest here once, they often return. It creates a powerful cycle of reinvestment and innovation. And then there's the work culture. Silicon Valley has always blurred the line between life and work. Yes, there are perks, casual dress codes, free meals, flexible hours, but there's a hidden cost. People work constantly. Remote work was the norm long before the pandemic. The truth is, 40-hour work weeks are a myth in the Valley. They simply don't exist. Silicon Valley isn't just a place on the map, it's a force. Connections are made often by chance. Outsiders might find its culture puzzling, even strange. But somehow it works. Through the 60s, 70s, 80s, and 90s, Silicon Valley stayed relevant. Each era brought a new generation, yet something kept pulling them back in. This powerful techno-optimism unites generations. It's the belief that technology will make the world better. But beneath that idealism lies something tougher: the hustle. It's survival of the fittest. Sure, you might be friends with others, but they won't feed you, not for free. To thrive in the Valley, you need more than just skill. You need the right environment, a tight network, a unique mix of companies orbiting around you. So here's the real question: can this ecosystem ever be replicated?